guys, welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to be talking about how to redraft your novel. It's been a thrilling, torturous and questionable journey, but you've finally made it. Your protagonist is walking off into the sunset with their sidekick, love interest, or deepened sense of self, and you've typed the two most satisfying words ever, the end. Only it's not really the end, it's more like 5 meters in front of the start line and no one gave you a map. And you've never been on this running track before, and the other competitors have already left so you can't even follow the slow guy, and some prick stole your sneakers. Don't worry, you will cross that finish line, and when you do, I'll be there to hand you our special members gift pack, which includes whiskey, band-aids, pens, and a Grammarly discount code. Well, you would have received the members pack if it weren't for the endless cuts to Australian art funding. Hopefully that situation improves before you begin book 2, but it probably won't. Seriously though, finishing a first draft is a huge deal and you should be super proud. Some people spend years, maybe even a lifetime, talking about their project, their masterpiece that they've never actually started. But you are not that person. You did the thing. And for that, you should be really, really happy. However, a first draft is not a book. I know, fucking sucks, right? But easy isn't easy. It's boring. Lucky for you, little writer daredevil that you are, there ain't nothing boring about redrafting. In other words, this stage can be a little challenging. For this week's blog, I'm gonna break down the 5 steps you can take when approaching a major redraft. Now, I've got to be totally honest, I hate listicles. 5 ways to do this, 5 ways to do that, whatever. But I have to admit, it's an easy way to organize things, so here we are. 5 steps to redrafting your novel. The first step is to write out the plot as it currently exists. If you're a plotter and you actually stuck to your original outline, then you can skip this step. Lucky bitch. All you pantsers and pretend plotters, come with me. Now you're gonna pull out your manuscript, grab a fresh piece of paper and a pen, and you're gonna go through your novel from start to finish. Unless you've written a novella, this may take a couple of sittings. Using each chapter as a heading, write down the setting, characters, point of view, significant events, plot beats, and emotional highlights that occur in your chapter. For example, Chapter 1, June 1st, 1990, Brisbane Airport, Cindy's point of view, and she is talking to Blake. Dot point number 1, passengers are boarding, Cindy cries while saying goodbye to Blake. Point number 2, Blake can't find his plane ticket and the stewardess refuses to let him on the plane. Point 3, Blake storms to the counter. Point 4, Cindy pulls the ticket from her pocket and throws it in the bin. As another aside, I set this scene in 1990 so no one could say, couldn't Blake just use his Qantas app and use a digital ticket to get on the plane? Yeah, thanks technology, you big stinkin' plot killer. You can choose to make this outline as simple or as detailed as you prefer. Personally, I like to keep it pretty simple, that way I can look at the outline and get a really clear overview of the novel as a whole. But if you've been working on your project for a long time, or if it's been a while since you've looked at a particular scene or chapter, then you may want to do a more detailed outline in order to refamiliarize yourself with the content. Now to step 2, we've got highlighting. Grab 3 different colored highlighters and designate one color to emotion, another color to action, and the last color to plot. For example, yellow for emotion, green for action, and orange for plot. Now go through all of your dot points under each chapter heading and highlight each point with its corresponding color. Once you've gone through the whole outline, you may notice successive action-heavy chapters. Or maybe you have multiple chapters where characters are talking amongst themselves, but nothing much is happening. Maybe 70% of your police procedural is actually emotion, or 80% of your romance novel is actually plot-driven. Which is pretty impressive, so congratulations. Anyway, the point is, now you can see your novel. Obviously, you don't want to have 3 or 4 chapters that are dominated by emotion, but pure action isn't a solution either. Your novel should be a combination of light and shade. Back-to-back chapters detailing your protagonist's pondering about what it means to be human may move some readers, but others may find this thematic pounding heavy-handed. At the same time, endless action scenes can be tedious, and a poorly constructed one can read like a cheap trick, a way to inject tension into an otherwise dull scene. Next up, we're going to look for plot holes. While you were skimming through your manuscript and constructing this nifty little outline, you probably discovered a couple of plot holes. Jot down the inconsistencies and contradictions you've come across, but also note down the pages on which this story thread appears. Once you've come up with a solution to your plot hole, it's going to be so much easier to apply it if you know what pages this all occurs on. Before you start hacking your manuscript into pieces, let's just pause for a moment and do a little interior resetting. The next step is all about getting in the right mindset. Remember the first time you had a really awesome writing session? I do. One day, about 4 years ago, I wrote 6,000 words in one single day. This wasn't achieved in one sitting. My typical word count back then was 1,000 words a day, so that 5,000 word leap was huge. I remember the moment when I hit my normal word count of 1,000 words, I hit save, closed the document, and went about my day. But the story didn't end. Scenes, dialogue, ideas, they were all pouring through me. And if there's one thing I know for sure, if the muse shows up, do not ignore her. So I went back to my computer, I opened the Word file, and I kept writing. Normally, I'd be exhausted after such a huge session, but that day I was totally stoked. Not only was it a wildly productive day, I had fun too. However, though I had produced 6,000 new words, the manuscript's word total was 25,000 at that point. If a psychic had randomly knocked on my door and told me all that was to come over the next 4 years, I probably would have given up there and then. Here's a brief recap. I got my word count up to 80,000 words. Then I cut off the first 20,000. Then I enrolled in a master's program and cut a further 20,000 words off it. I decided to make a major character a different gender. 2 new characters were introduced. The word count slowly crept up from 40 to 80,000. A chapter from the middle suddenly became the opening chapter, and the overall structure changed from a group of strangers coming together to create a community to a family drama about grief. Sometimes knowing the future isn't all it's cracked up to be. The point is, it's hard to eat a whole cake in one sitting. It takes a long time and a lot of effort to write a book, but if you keep at it and you do a little each day, then you will make progress. If I quit on that day 4 years ago, then I wouldn't have a book now, so do your best to not get overwhelmed. See these changes as small individual to-dos rather than a gigantic laundry list of all this stuff you've got to complete today. Once you've made a note of your manuscript's problems, it's time to move on to the final step, which is construct a plan. The idea of constructing a plan sounds super efficient and action-orientated, but I'm about to throw you a curveball. While you may be able to iron out some of the crinkles in your manuscript within minutes of seeing them, chances are there will be some bigger and trickier plot holes that require a little more effort. Fixing plot holes can be hard. Tweaking a story thread to fix one contradiction on page 50 may just result in a new contradiction on page 120. You may have to do some really serious rewriting or restructuring. And if that's the case, you want to be pretty committed to the changes you want to make before you invest all that time in the rewrite. However, don't take too long thinking things over. So take your time to really think about these changes before you implement them. However, don't take too long, because thinking about writing is very different to actually writing. You may wake up in the middle of the night with a miraculous solution to that plot hole, but when you try to stitch that thread into your manuscript the following day, the seam won't hold. You can't make your protagonist do that thing, or maybe the new story thread reads as wooden or inauthentic. Or maybe your solution seems a little too easy, obvious, or even convenient. It may take several attempts and rewrites to fix major plot holes, so don't beat yourself up. Again, writing is different to thinking, and sometimes the only way to know whether or not something will work is to try it out. Writing is largely problem solving, but solutions rarely come easy. If you sit down with a clean piece of paper and a pen in hand with the intention of solving all of your plot holes, you'll probably hear crickets. More often than not, solutions arrive when we're out doing other things, when we're engaged with life. You don't have to be actively thinking about your novel all the time, but you should hold a space for it in the back of your mind, because you never know when a solution will appear. If and when you get a new idea, write it down, try it out, and see if it works. If all of this sounds like a ton of work, remember that writing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. If you quit today, then that really is the end. But if you do keep going, then one day, those 2 magical words will appear on the final page of your manuscript. There you have it, guys. Those are my 5 steps for approaching a rewrite. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe, or you can check out my website. I have a weekly newsletter that updates you as soon as I upload. Otherwise, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that jazz. All the links are below. Happy writing, and I'll see you again next week.